to examine the world as one man had experienced it. If there is a key message, life not centered on God is meaningless. It's purposeless. Futility of trying to live and enjoy life apart from God. That's a subject matter that's dealt with throughout the book. There is not a real clear-cut structure to it. And there are two major ideas that divide the book. It's very important for you to know. And that is the first 6 chapters, all is vanity. All is vanity. Then the remainder of the book, death is better than life. And those two concepts are supported by the author's experience, his own experience. And then on the back side of the book, I kind of gave you a little bit of a structure, a little bit of an outline, and we'll talk more about that in a few moments. Ecclesiastes. When you look at Ecclesiastes, you need to address a couple questions to begin with, and that is, first of all, who wrote the book? If you look at chapter 1, verse 1, who wrote Ecclesiastes? Chapter 1, verse 1. The words of the preacher, and a lot of versions will say teacher, the teacher. The son of David, king in Jerusalem. But if you go down to verse 12, I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. So when you look at those two verses, everything points to the fact that Solomon is the writer, the author of this book. He wrote this. You have to remember that he had reached the pinnacle of success, if you will. And he had everything he could ever want. But he began to question some of the foundational beliefs that had been passed down from his father, David. So this was a great time of emotional turmoil for Solomon as he wrote this book. And you look at the title, Ecclesiastes, and what in the world does Ecclesiastes mean? Well, our English title, Ecclesiastes, comes from the Greek Ecclesiastes, spelled with K instead of the C, which is used in the Septuagint. Remember, the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. It was used in the Septuagint to translate a Hebrew title. And that Hebrew title is Koheleth. Teacher. Preacher. In verse 1, you see that. The term means master of assemblies. One who holds and addresses an assembly. It's the idea of someone communicating, who communicates as the official speaker, if you will. Teacher, preacher, kind of says it. Pretty good. Someone who gathers thoughts and ideas, and someone who shares those thoughts and ideas with other people. So that is how the title came about, Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a very difficult book. I heard one preacher say that if he had a book in the Bible that he would speak about to those who are unsaved, it would be this book, Ecclesiastes. It hits people right where they live. It speaks to people, it speaks to a world that tries to find its way in this world without God. It speaks to people who are looking for meaning in their life. But they're looking for that meaning in their life in all the wrong places. Look at chapter 2, verse 16, just a moment. You want a betrayal of life lived apart from God? Look at chapter 2, verse 16 and 17. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man as the fool? Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. All of it is meaningless. It's like chasing after the wind. It's emptiness, it's futility, it's useless striving. It's meaningless. It has no purpose. There is no satisfaction in life. Ecclesiastes is a book that includes a lot of questions, but there are not very many answers. It's a book filled with pessimism. There are some statements in here, and we looked at the book of Ecclesiastes, if you remember, studied it. There are some things that are said that are kind of shocking to Christians that are said. So when you read the book, you will be shocked by some things. One thing that you need to remember when you think about the inspiration of the Bible, inspiration of the Bible does not guarantee that everything in this book is to be a guideline for living. You need to understand that. But what inspiration does guarantee you this, that what was written for us in our instruction, and it is accurate, it's correcting, it's training, all of that. All of that is included. Remember 2 Timothy 3:16. What is right? What is not right? How to get right? How to stay right. Okay? So there's a lot of things in here. Look at chapter 11. And look at verse 2, I think it is. No, I'm sorry, not chapter. Chapter 2, verse 11. I'm dyslexic here tonight. Chapter 2, verse 11. 2:11. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. When I surveyed my hands and all that my hands had done, all that I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, he said. Like chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. That vanity, I think, is used somewhere between 35 and 40 times in this book. Under the sun, as I told you, I may put that in your outline too, is something that appears quite often in the book. Solomon, in effect, was saying this: I've tried everything. I've tried it all. But I cannot find any satisfaction in life. And there was a simple reason for it, because he left out God. He left God out. He possessed every single thing a person could ever want. He began to reject his heritage, the ideals of his nation, and even his God. He decided that he would pursue happiness in his own way, that he would pursue it without God. And everything that occurred was heartbreaking. And he basically says, I didn't get what I wanted. By the end of every pursuit that he pursued, he was hollow. Everything was empty. So what you have in the book of Ecclesiastes is a diary, really, of his wanderings, his searching for satisfaction apart from God. And that's important for us to remember. Everything that he had, and everything that he did, he was never satisfied, because it was done with God being left out. Well, when you look at the book, there's just the word vanity, and again, in the life under the sun, those things occur, those words and phrases occur quite often. In chapter 1, verse 1 through 11, you really could consider that the introduction. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All is vanity. The word vanity, the Hebrew word for vanity, refers to that which is without real substance. That is without any value to it, any permanence, any significance, any meaning. That's what that word means. And what things qualify as vanity? Look down at verse 9. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. All things under the sun. And then he goes on, beginning in verse 3, what profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? And he goes on to support this thesis, if you will, by the meaningless cycles of life, if you will. The meaningless cycles that are found in history and in nature. He connects humanity's work with the rising and setting of the sun, the wind, the constant flowing rivers that we have. And so what he does, he goes on to suggest that we just are locked into this endless cycle of activity that has no lasting significance. There is nothing new under the sun. That which has been is that which will be. It's all a cycle. Well, And the chapters up through chapter 11, the middle of the first part of chapter 11, he talks about his personal pursuits, if you will. He focuses on the hollowness of human achievement. Again, verse 13, all things. Everything has been done under the sun. All human activities under the sun. All are burdenless, all are meaningless, he says. Not even the great wisdom that Solomon possessed could satisfy him. Nothing could satisfy. In chapter 2, he tries to find meaning in the pursuit of pleasure. He finds he fills his life with laughter and wine and work and women and construction and beauty, riches, all those things. And if you look at chapter 2, verse 11, as I read, I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought and on the labor that I've labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit. There was no profit under the sun. Look down at verse 20. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. Labor does not produce any lasting value, he says. Because since someone can come along after you die and really mishandle what you left behind. That's basically what he says. Chapter 3, when you look at it, everything in life, birth, death, weeping, laughter, comes to pass in its own time, he says. But our existence doesn't change that fact. Earthly activity seems meaningless. Look at chapter 3, verse 20. All go into one place, all are the dust, all turn to dust again. You die, it's it. We all go to the same place. But this is what you see in this book. Death is the great equalizer, he says in verses 18 through 21 there. Verse 22, wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that the man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his portion, for who shall bring him to see what shall be after him. We should enjoy life while we have it. And then in chapter 4, he begins to examine social relationships, oppression, competition, isolation, advancement, all of that. And look at chapter 4, verse 16. What does it say? There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Even in chapter 5, he begins, even our relationship with God is meaningless if it is limited to lip service only. And thoughtless religion. That's what he says in the first 7 verses of chapter 5. Then he talks about government in verse 8 and 9. Government doesn't provide life's ultimate meaning either. For it's a breeding ground for corruption. And wealth does not fulfill. You fall in love with money, you'll never have enough. That's a fact, isn't it? You never have enough. And then you worry about what you do have. True joy comes when we see riches and all of life as a gift of God to be enjoyed. And he talks about that in verses 10 through 20. Otherwise, everything we accomplish and accumulate during life is meaningless. And that's what he says in chapter 6. And then the rest of the book, he reaches some conclusions. And I found something that kind of summarizes it, and I'll read that to you. In light of all of Solomon, in light of all that he had experienced, he concludes that the way of wisdom is the path to a full life. And in chapter 7 through 9, he talks about, he gives lessons in practical wisdom. And then in chapters 9 through 11, he contrasts that with folly. He contrasts wisdom with folly. Wilkerson and Boa, in a book called Talk Through the Old Testament, summarize what he says about wisdom. Listen to these words. The writer portrays levity and pleasure-seeking as superficial and foolish. It is better to have sober depth of thought. Wisdom and self-control provide perspective and strength in coping with life. One should enjoy prosperity and consider in adversity that God made both. Avoid the twin extremes of self-righteousness and immorality. Sin invades all men, and wisdom is cut short by evil and death. The human mind cannot grasp ultimate meaning. Submission to authority helps one avoid unnecessary hardship. But real justice is oftentimes lacking on earth. The uncertainties of life and certainty of the grave show that God's purpose and ways often cannot be grasped. One should therefore magnify opportunities while they last, because fortune can change very suddenly. Solomon says wisdom is better than the way of fools. Folly brings personal grief and personal humiliation and misfortune to a person's life. Each day that we are given is given as a day, an opportunity for us to live in wisdom rather than in folly. In the last part of chapter 7 and through the first part of chapter 8, he sees life as an opportunity for us to live wisely or foolishly. And he exhorts the youth to enjoy life as a gift from God while they are young. Because old age can be a dark and dismal time. If you look at chapter 12, look at verse 2. And I find it humorous in a way, but it's the way that it is. We'll begin in verse 1. Remember that now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not. For the years draw nigh when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light of the moon or the stars be not darkened, or the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves. The grinders cease because they are few. Talking about your teeth. Grinders, your teeth. You don't have as many when you get older. And those who look out the windows be darkened. Talking about what? The eyesight, yeah. No door shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. I can go to bed no matter what time. 5 o'clock, I'm up. Carly can tell you. Some of you know what I mean. You get old, well, some of well, you get. I don't know. I've gotten older. I can't sleep as long. I'm up early. I'm sitting there, and a lot of times just sitting there by myself. Then I begin to just do things because whether it be study, read, whatever, meditate, pray. Ears begin, hearing begins to, you know what I mean. Eyesight begins to, I never dreamed of the day that I would have to wear these. Never dreamed of it. As you get older, those things happen, right? Can't sleep, hearing goes, teeth go, hair gone. When they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fear of heights. I can't stand height. I can't stand going across that bridge over there. Can't stand it. And Carla says something all the time. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it this bridge high? Every time we go by, and I just want to yeah. Grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, all because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets, and wherever the silver cord be loosed, and the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, and still will broken at the cistern. Again, then shall be the dust returned to earth as it was, and the spirit shall return to God who gave it. Again, all of that. Old age can be a very dark and a very dismal time. So the sooner you begin to walk with God, enjoy Him, the better. And that's the word He gave to the youth. And it's the word to all of us.
But he didn't, apparently was not thinking about all the good he had.
I know it.
Seeing
I know it.
misery.
I know it.
If we all lived like that, we'd be a
Pitiful group, wouldn't we? And again, I'm so glad that this book is included in the Bible. I'm so glad it has survived and it's down through the centuries because, this teaches you that you can't live this life apart from God and be happy and find satisfaction. You can't do it. You can't do it. And that's the whole point of what he's saying. I looked, I had everything, I did everything, I had anything I wanted, I tried this, I did this, and nothing would satisfy. Because it was done apart from God. The last couple verses of the last chapter are really kind of important. His reflections had his words come from the heart of a shepherd. Look at verse 11. The words of the wise are as goads and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. He recognizes his recognition of a heavenly author. keeps us from just really considering or seeing Ecclesiastes as just some very cynical piece of writing, rambling. And then verses 13 and 14 are really the main thrust of his message. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Here it is. Through all of it, here's the conclusion. Here it is. This is the main substance of the message. Hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God. Again, reverence, respect. Keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. After he reflects on the ebb and flow of life, if you will, including his own life, he concludes simply that God is our purpose. That God should be our purpose. God is our meaning. God is the only goal worth pursuing. And if we walk with him, we not only enjoy life, but we prepare ourselves for eternity. It's not life under the sun that brings true meaning to life, that brings purpose and joy under the sun. It's a godly life. And that's how he concludes. And that's my take on the book of Ecclesiastes. Very different book. A lot of critics attack the book because of just really how secular the book is. But again, it's inspired. Teaches what's right, what's not right, how to get right, and how to stay right. And you have to look at the whole. Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess next Sunday I know we got the dinner and activities afterwards, and it'll be kind of late for some people and so forth, but I'm assuming that she'll want to have choir practice maybe later that evening too. I don't know. But, yeah, so. But anyway. Okay. All right. That's all I got. That's all you need.